Hi guys, I know it's been a year since I posted anything on this channel, and honestly I just can't believe it's been that long. But starting from today I'm gonna be putting up videos every week. Now in this tutorial I wanted to show you guys how to get started with Git. Now if you've never used Git before, or you don't know what Git is, don't worry, because I'm gonna be taking you guys step by step. Now in this tutorial we are going to be using Git with GitHub as a client. I'm going to show you guys how to set up a GitHub account. I'm going to show you guys how to create your first repository, how to clone that repository into your local machine, how to work on that repository, how to push your changes from your local repository to your cloud-based repository, which is going to be residing on GitHub. So let's get started. The first thing we want to do is we want to open our command line or terminal, and I want you to check if you have Git installed in your machine. To do that, I want you to type git --, and then you type version. You click enter. If you do have Git, it's gonna tell you the version of Git that you have in your machine. If you don't have Git, it's not gonna show you anything, or it's probably going to show you an error of some sort. Now if you do not have Git in your machine, do not worry. I want you to go ahead and open up your browser, and then in your browser just type git-scm.com. Now this is where you're going to download Git. If you look at this section here, it's automatically going to pick up your operating system. In my case I'm using Linux, and that's why it's saying download for Linux. If you're using Windows or Mac, it's gonna say download for Windows or download for Mac respectively. Now click on download, and once the download has completed, navigate to the folder where the downloaded file is at, and then you just follow the standard installation process. Now just click on next until the installation is finished, because when you're installing Git, it has a lot of options that you can pick. Just take the default ones until you finish the installation. Once Git is installed in your machine successfully, I want you to go back to your browser. I want you to open a new tab, and I want you to type github.com. Now github.com is where we are going to keep our code base. If you don't have an account yet, just click on sign up, and then type your email here. In our case, we're just gonna type demo.mail@gmail.com. Then you press on continue, and then they're gonna ask you to create a password. Just pick a strong password. And once you've done that, just click on continue, and then you need to enter your username. Click on continue until you finish the account creation process. Now I'm not gonna do that because I already have an account. I'm just gonna navigate back to the sign in screen, so click here on the top, and then I'm gonna enter my username and my password. Now when you're opening up GitHub for the first time, you are not going to see these repositories here on the side. These files here, you're not going to see them. These are here for me because I've been using Git for quite some time, and this is actually my 4th year using Git. But for you, I want you to click on the green button that says new. You just click on the button. Now it's going to take you to this screen where you can create your repository. Now let's give our repository a name. We're just going to call this one Dice Game, which by the way is going to be the application that we're going to be building from this day onwards. So stick around and make sure you turn on your notification bell so that whenever we post a new video, you are the first one to see it. So you can give your repository a description. It's optional, you don't really have to. In fact, I'm not going to give it a description right now. I can always do that later. Now the next thing is to give it a visibility. So we have public and private. If you want to be the only one who can see the project, you can click on private, and then you can decide who else can see it. Or if you want everybody to be able to see the project, just click on public. Ours is going to be left on public because anyone should be able to see this project, because we're going to be building this project over a couple of videos, and it's gonna be interesting. Anyways, moving on to this initialize this repository section. So we're gonna add a readme file. A readme file is basically where you specify what the project is all about. Now you can tell people what they can and cannot do with your project. So we're gonna add a readme file here, and then we're gonna add a Git Ignore file as well. Now a Git Ignore file is basically a file that tells Git which files to not include in the commit. Now we're gonna look at commits later on in this video, but basically what's happening here is there are files that you may not want to keep in your code base, because for one, they will increase the size of your code base, and you don't really have to show, and you don't really want to share them with other developers. These files may include but not limited to your log files, your code editor folders. Like for instance, if you're using Visual Studio Code, you have a VS Code folder that you don't really want to keep in the code base, because everybody has one of those in their machine. Now we're going to click on add the Git Ignore file. Then it will prompt you to select a template. A template really is a file that is predefined that has all the files that are ignored by default for that particular technology, for a lack of a better word. Now just click on this drop down list, and then you have a ton of options you can pick from. So since we're going to be building our application using Java, I'm just going to type Java here, and then you select Java, and then I'm going to choose a license. A license is not really necessary, but it's there especially if you're going to be building an application that can be used by other organizations or people as well, to let them know that you're going to continue supporting this application. Now we are going to again select the drop down list, and then we're going to select the MIT license. There is a ton of these licenses you can pick, but generally the most used is the MIT license, but you can pick any if you wanted to. We're just going to pick this one for the sake of this tutorial, and then we're going to create the repository, and that's it. You're done. Now you have your repository set up. So we need to figure out a way to make changes to this repository. To do that, we are going to go to the code section, click on code, and then we are going to copy this URL. Just click on this clipboard icon, and then go back to a folder where you want to store your information. So in our case, we are going to, let's first clear the screen, and then we're going to navigate to documents, and then we are going to create a new folder in our documents. So mkdir, we're going to call this one GitHub. Press enter, and then navigate to this newly created folder. And then once you are in this folder, I want you to type the following commands. So it's git clone, and then you paste the URL we copied previously, and then you press on enter. It's going to start cloning your repository to your local machine. Now that we've successfully cloned our repository, the next thing is to navigate to the folder. So to do that, we're going to cd, and then we type the name of the folder, which is dice game. Just press tab and then press enter. We are inside the dice game folder now. So what we're going to do when we get to this part, we are going to run this following command, which is going to say touch dice game.java, then press on enter. Now if you prefer using a graphical user interface, you can definitely do that with the creation of folders and files. No problems with that, but I want you to get used to using a terminal, because when you're using Git, I for one prefer using a terminal, because you get to understand the inner workings of Git through manually doing the stuff, rather than using a graphical user interface tool like GitHub Desktop or SourceTree or any other applications that are out there which will help you use the stuff, or using a code editor, because nowadays code editors have sort of incorporated Git into their own architecture. But we're going to be using the terminal in this tutorial. So now we've just created the Java file within our folder. So what we want to do right now is take this file that we just created and then ship it into our cloud repository. To do that, let's just run the git status command. And then once we have done that, I want us to then add this file to the staging area. To do that, we're going to run a command which is git add, and then you can type an asterisk or you can type a dot and then you press on enter. This basically says add all the files that are not in the staging area. If you didn't want to add all the files, then you can specify the file name. So we could have said git add and then you type the file name, which is dice game.java. You could have done that if you wanted to only add this file, which is a cool feature that is offered by Git. You don't necessarily have to commit all the files you changed. Now the next thing we are going to do is to commit these changes. To do that, we're going to run the next command that you need to notice, which is git commit and then -m for message and then space and then 2 double quotes, opening and closing, and then inside them you type the message, which is basically what you did in this commit. So what did we do? We added the Java class file. That's what we did. Now you always want to make sure that the commit message makes sense, because it's going to help you in the future when you want to backtrack and look at the changes that you had made, because Git keeps the history of all your changes, which is also a cool thing about Git. So once you've done that, just click on enter. Now we've effectively made a commit, but this commit is not in the cloud yet. If we go back to our browser and then we hit refresh, we are not going to see this file yet, because we need to push it from our local machine all the way to the cloud so that it reflects here. So let's go back to the terminal. Let's run this command. So it's git push -u origin, and then what is the name of our branch? It's actually residing on main. So make sure you type this branch name as it is. It's main in this instance. So you type main and then you press on enter. This is going to prompt for your username, and then you can always enter your username and then it's going to ask for your password. You can do that. Let's put our username first. So this is my username. Then press enter. Password, then this is my password. Okay, so let's go back to our repository and let's set up the token. Okay guys, so to generate a token, go to your profile section and then you go to settings and then you go to developer settings here, and then once you're here, just click on personal access tokens. You click on generate new token, and then you give your token a name. We can call it commit code to GitHub, and then we're gonna scroll down and give it the expiry date. Typically you want to give it the least amount of time, because if somebody has access to your token, they can seriously do some damage. So you want to give it the minimum amount of time possible. Just give it 7 days, and then we're gonna come to this section and then we give it what we can be able to do using this token. So we're just gonna give it all the permissions, and then you generate your token. Now just copy your token and then let's just click on the home page. And then let's go into our newly created repository, which is dice game. And then let's go back to the terminal. Just click on the up arrow, press enter, and then type in your username, press enter, and then for your password, just paste your token here and then press enter. Now we've effectively pushed our changes from our local repository all the way to GitHub. So let's go back to GitHub to see if the file that we just added is actually available. Let's refresh the browser. Now this is our file sitting right here. Now let's revise once again. There are some commands that I said you should take note of, and I'm gonna write them down. The first one is Git Status, which tells you the status of your working directory. And then another one is going to be Git Add, and then asterisk, which is used to add files to the staging area. Now a staging area is where all the files that will be part of the next commit will be sitting at. So now we have actually checked the status, and then we've added the files to the staging area. Now we need to commit those files that are in the staging area. To do that, we run the following command, which is Git Commit, and then -m for message, and then double quotes, and then you type your message. So you type your message here. Now if you're working with other people in your repository, you need to first pull before you push. So when you're pulling, is you are getting whatever changes that are in the cloud repository into your local repository to see if they don't conflict with the changes that you're trying to push to the remote repository. To do that, you run git pull. Now we're going to demonstrate this command because we did not see it in action earlier. Let's go back to the terminal, type git pull, and then press enter. It's telling us that already up to date, so we don't have any changes that we need to get into our local repository. So let's minimize and let's go back to the notes. The next command is now used to push your local changes to the cloud repository, and that command is Git Push Origin, and then you put the name of the branch you want to push into. In our case, we only have one branch, which is main, so we just type main, and make sure you type main as it is in the cloud. Okay, so these are the only commands we're going to focus on. In the future, I might make more videos where I'm going to show you more commands that you can use. These are the commands you need to know. Git status to check the status of your working directory. Git add asterisk or star to add all the files. Git add the file name if you want to add just one file to the staging area. Git commit -m, and then inside the double quotes you put the message. That's for writing the commit message. Git pull is to get the changes from the cloud repository into your local repository to make sure that there is no conflict, and that conflict, we call it a merge conflict. And then once you verify that your local repository code does not conflict with the code that is sitting in the cloud, then you can write the next command, which is Git Push Origin, and then the name of the branch. In our case, this is the name of the branch, main, so we're pushing directly to the main branch. And that's it. That's it for this tutorial, guys. We will be making more changes to this application because right now we don't have any code in that file. In fact, we can go into this folder and then let's open our file, which is dicegame.java. It doesn't have anything. So in the future, we're going to be implementing the business logic into this file until we completely build this game. Thank you very much, guys, for watching this tutorial. Be sure to like and subscribe, and don't forget to tell a friend to tell a friend.